Budget 2025 was unveiled in the National Assembly under the theme A Secure, Prosperous and Sustainable Guyana to the tune of $1.382 trillion by Senior Minister in the Office of the President with responsibility for finance and the public service, Dr. Ashni Singh. This is the largest budget ever seen in the history of Guyana, as well as fully financed with no new taxes. Thank you for joining us for another program of Budget in Focus. I'm Travis Bruce, Communications Manager of GWI, and we will delve into the Budget 2025 and its impact on the housing and water sectors. With me at this time is Honorable Collin Croal, Minister of Housing and Water, and these sectors are really at the heart of improving lives, fostering development, and ensuring a sustainable future for all Guyanese. Minister Croal, welcome to the program and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right. I want to take a walk down memory lane to January 17. Dr. Ashni Singh just concludes his presentation in the National Assembly announcing that $1.382 trillion budget. What were your thoughts like? Tell me overall how pleased you are with this PPPC government budget that was presented.
I'm extremely pleased with the presentation on the budget and the information that's been provided. You know, it's very easy to repeat and be carried away to say, yes, we presented the largest budget. But it's much more beyond a $1.38 billion size budget. It is what it's intended for and the impact. And when you examine in every sector the responses, the initiatives, the direction in which we are moving, signals to you our commitment. And for those we have not been able to fulfill before now in terms of our commitment, we are now able to do that. It's our consistency. It is a message that we are consistent in ensuring to say to the people of Guyana, this is our plan. This is our strategic vision. This is how we want to move Guyana. We want to move Guyana as quickly as possible to ensure that everyone, regardless of where you live in this 83,000 square miles, that you are able to be uplifted equally and that you live a better quality of life and that you feel the transformation, not just see it, but feel the transformation and the development that is taking place across the length and breadth, as I said, that you feel part of this Guyana. And that when you listen to that budget, that is what you get. And similarly for my sector, we have presented as the picture and the scenario of what we want to achieve. What are our targets for both of the housing and the water sector? And we've said this is what we want to achieve by X time. We have been able to, by and large, match that, in some cases surpass some of the activities. And what this budget allows us now to do is to continue our initiatives and our programs to affect directly the individuals, the citizens of our country. And similarly, it's a people-centered budget. And that's by and large what you get in this 2025 budget.
Yeah. Minister, you alluded to some of the things that are happening in the housing and water sector. Of course, two very critical and important sectors. We have been seeing the benefits or the investments that have been made by government. So I want us to reflect on the progress that would have been made over the past year. What are some of the most notable achievements that you would like to talk about, both in the housing and water sector?
Sure. Let's probably start with the housing. First of all, I have to go back a little more. We have to recognize what is it that we took over in 2020 for the housing sector. We took over a sector that, by and large, the housing program under the previous government was relegated to a department. So the priority, therefore, in the last APNUFC government, the housing was not one of the top tier programs. It was a department in the Ministry of Communities. That's the first thing. Secondly, in the response, because consistently you have persons who are applying as part of a program. It's a program that was inherited from the PPPC previous government and then, it continued. Allocations were not being done. Minimal. So you obviously have a backlog that that keep piling up. In a 5-year period, 7,500 plus. So that is talking about 1,000 plus a year. That is what we inherited. We inherited whereby, while some allocations were done, infrastructure. No new infrastructure was done during that period. So when we got in, we had to say we came into a commitment to say is that by year 5 or within the 5 years, we want to achieve 10,000 annually. In order to do that, you're doing 10,000 annually, cognizant that you just came out from a period with over 5 years, it was 7,000 plus. And so that is what we had to start. So we had to put priority in terms of responding for allocation exercises. And I know, for some persons, it can be irritating because they're waiting a while. But we have to put a criteria. And so what we achieved last year in the context of allocations was over 10,200 plus, 214 in fact. That we have achieved our target. It is to achieve that target meant two things. One, we were able to acquire additional lands, and as I've said repeatedly, you hear the term Guyana has a land space, the land of many waters, but it also has a lot of land space that is not unused. But you have to recognize what are those lands. The lands that are in usage are, one, depending on the region in which it falls, may have competing interests. In our case, we were able to get back a lot of the sugarcane lands as a result of the consolidation in different regions of the factory, this concentration of the factory. We have to compete with farming. We have to compete for livestock. We have to compete with other sectors for their programs and development. So from a governmental level, is recognizing that satisfying that social need is also a priority. But we have to mix that. We have to respond to social need that our people all are by and large able to have access to a land or a home, be able to have an area that you can call now this is your own. You have a comfortable environment. You're also addressing the social fabric in terms of where you have some communities when you're clustered, you're living a lot of persons living in one household. There are a lot of dynamics from the social aspect that can be affected. And that is what we're satisfying. So to acquire the land, there's another aspect. The other aspect is as to develop the land. And therefore the infrastructure comes into place here. And that's where the largest resources on the housing program goes toward, most naturally. But I want to give you this scenario. Let's use East Bank of Demerara, because by and large we have maximized in terms of the allocations for the East Bank. We're up to Grove, and that's where the housing program is. Picture east of where the Heroes Highway is now. But before time, you didn't have the Heroes Highway, but I'm just giving you a scenario where I want you to picture. All of that sugarcane land, previously sugarcane land, some are not in use, and then in some cases flooded. So it's there. Persons who were previously allocated on the East Bank of Demerara, you're coming in from the main road. Obviously, when you allocate, you have to keep going inwards. And going inwards means keep going eastwards. That then is being termed the back of allocations for the East Bank. We've built two access roads. You have, first of all, the one access road that connects you from Eccles, and then the inner one that runs all the way up to 6th and 7th Street Diamond. And then came along the 4-lane highway that runs from Mandela at the current state to Diamond. And then within another 3 months, we're hoping to be able to complete from Diamond to Craig. We have already initiated the other aspect from Craig to London Canal. Then came that Heroes Highway. That is now the front. I have staff who say to me that, I'm getting to work very quickly now. I don't have any excuse. I don't have that hassle. And if you're living in Diamond, which was previously the back of Diamond, think about that. You just use that highway and you get to Mandela or wherever else you want to exit. That's the scenario. And then when we allocate further, we got close to what's called the Conservancy. All that land was in swamp. So we've had to expend additional resources to, first of all, address drainage and irrigation. And we're doing this in conjunction with the NDIA, with their guidance. When you're finished doing that, you have to develop, when you finish draining, you have to develop the drainage. You also now have to do the road networking. It costs a lot of money. Now, if you fly over on the east bank of Demar, all the way to Grove, you'll see all there clear. You'll see the road path. You'll see culverts. And we've already put into place, as part of our program, the pipe network that is for water. And the internal aspect is done through CHP, and then the external comes from GWI. We have begun to show persons. I know, and it's factual, we'd have had persons who were allocated there maybe sometime in 2021. And by 2023, you saw a lot of comments. We're waiting a long time, we're waiting a while. And they're now seeing that, and many have seen, and all are able to see their East Banklands. But you've had to wait a little extra period. But it was important for us to know what we took over, the type of land, the type of investment that had to go in to develop this area, to turn that flooded, unused, all bush, all high trees into an area that will become an housing development or a housing scheme. That's the scenario. That's one of the major success I wanted to refer to when you ask over the last year. Because in all of that, we have been able to add new housing schemes as we go along, in keeping with our target to be able to allocate more. Then, so infrastructure is another aspect. And then we come to ownership from two aspects. One, the areas that we have developed and the area we've allocated, so that those persons can go on to have their title, and you use that for other purposes. For collateral, it's your own. No one can tell you anything. You go and come as you feel like. You don't have that landlord kind of hassle. And then we have a number of areas we're addressing in terms of, for decades, persons occupy, may have been squatting, may have been just occupying, and over time take for granted, have not been addressed. We have an aggressive program to address all of those persons. And in fact, our president has termed it Operation Cleanup. And so on the coastline here, you'll find a lot of that initiative to remove any of those areas where persons have not been able to receive their certificate of titles. So you have one, relocation, because in some cases you can't regularize persons there. Where we have looked at it in the policy directive and we can get a regularization, then they remain there. We do the plan, the occupancy, and then you're able to process once your land is transferred. It takes time. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of surveying work. And it's a similar amount of staff that is doing all of these works and these development programs. I want to quickly, while it's not too much on the monetary side, but it's a major transformation, is to speak towards the introduction of the single window processing unit, electronic single window processing unit. And because you've asked for the 2024 highlights our success.
Sure.
Here is an initiative, an introduction of whereby if you want to construct, You first of all go to the local authority, you lodge your plan there. You go to CHPA, you make your application, then CHPA sends to the relevant agencies, depending on your type of application, land use that you want for the approval, construction permit that you're seeking. What happens after that? Months pass, and you, the applicant, saying, hey, CHPA is taking forever to approve my application. Or whatever is the case, to make a ruling to be taken to the board if it's not going to be approved. Sometimes you go to the local authority, you're still waiting a while to have your plans approved. What this does is to eliminate the hassles. So we are now complete on all those applications coming in now has to pass through the electronic single window. We've introduced as a result of this sometime in June. So we do have a few that were in the system before June that we've allowed, because rather than you go back that process, that we've allowed to go through the old process, the old methodology. But all applications are passing through the electronic single window. What happens? We've started to rigidly apply the time bound. So there's a responsibility on the agencies or the authorities to respond in particular time of their necessary feedback, whether they're objecting, whether they're okay, whatever it is, to provide a feedback on that database so that quickly we can get it to the board and the board can review the feedback that comes from the various agencies, relevant agencies. And similarly, we did have some pushback from the local authorities. And you recognize that. When you're changing a system that has a lot of human factor and subjectivity, so somebody feels it's important that I have to run to your office to beg you to look at a document that should be part of your routine or your work. You feel empowered, etc. So you're taking away that, all of that. And so what we want from that is predictability from the electronic single, as well as allow you to be wherever and make your application. And this is now also linked with our regional offices and the local authorities, so you can go there and have your documents uploaded. So this for me is transformational. It's a major change. It's a way how we have to do business. And the approval permits, may I say this, it's not to be opposing. It is to aid and abet in terms of your application. It's to help the process. So that's why when it initially comes in, there is a first stop where they do go through and have that checklist of checking to see that all the documents have been submitted, etc., before you're asked to make your payments. Because the other aspect of that is that you don't have to go to all of those persons to make your payments for your fees, depending on what they're charging. All we pay to central housing, and central housing remits that to the relevant agencies. So it's a one-stop shop you're doing. That's what it is. And so we're proud about that, because if we want to move quickly in the rate at which we want to do things, then these are the sort of changes that allows us to make those initiatives happen. And this is major for us. As I said, you would have had some initial hiccups in its initial implementation, but now it's moving smoothly. And with it also comes the setting up of a tribunal process for those who want to appeal. And the appeal is not to me. There's someone who is in charge in terms of that tribunal process. So we're happy about that. Another aspect I just want to bring out quickly in what we're doing too is with the initiative of the program, the implementation of the Adequate Housing and Urban Accessibility Program. We've been working with communities too. And on that program, we've been able to build a number of houses, core houses, as part of that project. We've also been working in communities, as I said, so we're now embarking on some community grounds with the facilities that allows you to have training be done, etc. But in on board with all of that is to address a necessity or a niche whereby the criteria had that, it was a particular bracket that we were targeting. And finally, our housing program. The housing program, may I remind our listeners, this was not part or embedded in our manifesto commitment that we said we will build so many thousands. But we are happy to push this program too, because it also helps with home ownership. It also helps with another aspect in terms of the spin-off on the economy. Once you have construction happening, then all benefits, and we'll probably spend a little time in later down in looking at what with the impact on the construction sector. But our home ownership, and we've been able to build houses at different levels for different categories on our applicants that we have in our system, and we're happy about that. Sometimes I see a lot of criticisms, and or somebody says, "Oh, you're building a particular type of house; it's look too small, etc." But we're making affordable housing. It's not a profit-making activity. The houses are then based on the cost that it was built at, and we've kept it a particular ceiling. That's what it is being offered to the beneficiaries, and the beneficiaries all come through our system. They go to the bank and they're able to pre-qualify. The support from the banks, we cannot help but speaking about this, because they also understand government's program, government's in target, government's thinking, government's activity to ensure that we help with home ownership. So here you have ahead of you, when we started in 2020, that we said we will deliver 50,000 house lots. It means with those house lots, has persons who have to build. Yes, there would have been some hesitancy when we started, doubting, a lot of doubters to say, those numbers sound high, Where are we? We're 40,000 plus. And this year, as part of what we want to do, we will surpass our target. But we want to also, and we're aggressively looking at that right now, and we've started that work. We want to be able to, by and large, be very close and par in all the regions. Region 4 will pose that challenges because you recognize the largest pending applicants in the system is from Region 4. In fact, we have about 48,000 pending applicants in Region 4. But for the other regions, and this is again our housing program affects everyone in a major way. Quickly, I want to make mention, because I did say it finally, but I just want to make mention our hinterland program, because when you visit the hinterland, they're seeing the news too. They're reading the papers, so sometimes they see the houses that are being constructed on the coastline. But in their case, because of the land ownership, their land is communal land, so it's village lands. So government has been building houses within the hinterland. So we have a 400 houses program that we're implementing in the 4 main regions. And the initiative takes into consideration the local scenario of the materials that they may have. So for example, if you go to Region 9, building the clay blocks, that is part of what some of the economic venture for some of the communities. So we've been utilizing that. You go to the other regions where maybe the access to wood type it's better for them, then you will find the wood houses. And so that is how we've been implementing the hinterland program. So by and large, on our program affects everyone. Our allocation exercises cater for everyone. Our design for new schemes caters for different categories. And that is what we're about. We're not leaving anyone behind. The largest bracket of allocations are actually both the low and moderate income. And that will tell you the scenario, because that's where our largest pending applicants are. And that will help you to realize that, we are committed in what we're doing in a broad-based way to ensure that everyone is equally benefiting from that pie.
Minister, thank you for giving us a clearer vision of exactly what happens in the housing sector. It's more than just making lands available. It is a process. It's the networks, it's the roads, it's the bridges, and you alluded to as well some of the programs that you guys have. You know, the cement and steel subsidy. There's the affordable housing program with the core homes, the hinterland homes, and also the young professional homes. All of this, $112.6 billion allocated in the 2025 budget to continue to respond to the needs of housing. I know that perhaps it was intentional for the dream realized, because it's really a dream that persons might have, and it's being realized by giving them the opportunity to have a title, to have land, and so forth. You spoke about as well the exceeding of the 50,000 house lots, but I want us to go back, perhaps finally, before we move into water. I want us to understand how Budget 2025, all of these programs that happen, how will it continue to sustain it? And further, how will it continue to address the rising demand for affordable and accessible housing, especially for young families?
Sure. But before I go to that, there are two initiatives that I just want quickly remind you. And these again were not part of our manifesto. These were added initiatives that are part of helping with persons to be able to build. And that is similarly the LETEM program, whereby the beneficiaries, those houses are built to $3 million. The beneficiaries contribute, the government of Guyana contribute $1 million, and the beneficiaries $2 million. That was one aspect. And the second one, similar, the very steel and cement program, for which we've already, in terms of value to beneficiaries, close to $400 million to date. That program is really to, what do you say, kickstart or initiate for the foundation for persons to start their construction. So it gives them that impetus of being able to, hey, you having a start? Well, let me continue and initiate the bank. Coming to the 2025 program in a major way, it is a continuation and a consistency of what we said we will do. That's what the 2025 is really about. And as while I alluded to, very easily we can speak about allocations, we can speak about numbers, but those numbers can get lost, or the meaning for being able to commit to those numbers can get lost if we don't speak towards the activities to allow us to do that. So 2025 budget caters therefore for a continuation of new housing developments, for the infrastructure work, so that we can as quickly as possible be on par with our allocations. In fact, many of the persons who were allocated within the recent period, their infrastructure work has even started for those new areas. It's a continuation, as I said, on the other portion of the 4-lane highway for the Craig to London Canaan. And even if we can spend a few minutes to speak about what those highways do, the impact they have had, it's not just about building a road. Think about what we have done in the first phase for the schooner to Crane, from crossing the Demerara Harbor Bridge. Think about the time we have taken away when you have to instead travel going via Virginia Hoop vicinity. The amount of time we have reduced by simply building that road. I have a lot of staff who comes from within Region 3 region. And you'll tell you the time that they have to leave home. So even on the bridge, that bridge, it will, in a major way, take away from uncertainties, anxieties, allow obviously for reduction in transportation costs, so you have a free flowing, no disruption, so you can do more planning, you can do much more work, because there are a lot of time that is wasted sometimes being in there in the line, and that's what happened even on the East Bank portion of the road prior to when we didn't have the other point of the other highway, the Heroes Highway, because now persons who live on East Bank can have that gateway. So 2025 also caters for the continuation of that infrastructure, and similarly for a number of areas for where we have community-wise, for a community program it continues, because every community you go now, where in the older schemes you see infrastructure work is happening. The roads are being done in a major way. And so similarly for many of our housing schemes that, well, put it this way, regularized areas that now become housing schemes, we're putting the infrastructure work in place. With this also comes for us to be able to acquire much more for utilities, electricity and water. We spoke about water and communities. I was going to come and mention electricity now. All these new areas that you see, we have to put the electricity in. So that is also done as part of our housing program. And with the poles, the transformers, the wires, etc., and then that is linked to GPL, which GPL then gives us that approval with the designs, and it will continue, it will connect to the external source. But we put in that. Look at the amount of areas we've started. We're talking with over 75 new areas we have started up within this period. Those are all going to be connected to the grid, so persons can be able to get the utility services. That's major. And that's major because the amount of work that has to be done. So we, I mean, a large way is also for purchase of the electrical and the for those communities. So that's where the bulk of our resources are going towards. I also want to mention quickly on a project for 2025. Every support is needed. From government level, we want to get there as quickly as possible. So you would have heard us announce on the initiative with the Saudi Development Fund, the SDF. There are two areas that will receive funding this year for infrastructure work. And that was part, Molson Creek is part of that. A portion in Molson Creek is part of this program in Region 6, and then over in Region 3 within the Lenora area. So all our resources are welcome because it allows us to do more. So that's where our program is, most of our resources it's going towards for 2025. And the completion, because this will be the last year for this project, the Adequate Housing and Urban Accessibility Program, the completion of that project, whereby you have about 134 core houses that will be completed this year for handing over. For the listeners, please don't go applying because the beneficiaries have already been determined. They went through an application process. That's something we did very early when we came in. And so those persons have the approval and they're actually waiting. With that program, I also have the subsidies program. So the subsidies program sees a contribution of $750,000 in materials for a number of persons to help for the completion or construction on their building.
Minister, let's turn our attention now to water.
Sure.
For the first time in the history of Guyana, we've seen significant investment in the water sector. $23.1 billion was allocated in this year's budget for the water sector, and there must be specific projects or initiatives that this is geared towards. Can you talk a bit about that, as well as how government is seeking to improve the water supply not only on the coastal belt but also access in the hinterland and riverine areas?
Sure. when I described the budget for me for the budget very early in our interview, I used the word consistency. Here again, we're working with a vision. We're working with a strategic plan. And that strategic plan, among many things, but very briefly, one, speaks towards by 2025 100% access to potable water. So that will mean both the hinterland and for those on the coastline. That plan speaks towards on the coastline, the scenario is on 2020, the access to treated water that comes to the household, starting from Charity, going all the way up to Crabwood Creek. And now we'll have to include Molson Creek, but let's say Crabwood Creek, Region 6. 52% access to potable water, for treated water to the household. 52%. So all the complaints, you go to Charity or you go to Region 3 and you see those red water, in addition to the high iron content, you see that it discolored when you throw it on the wall. That is not being treated. Our commitment, by 2025, 90%, minimum of 90% treated water must be delivered to the households on the coastline. And we started where we ended 2024 around maybe 80%. What else have we committed? We've committed an aggressive program to our continuous program to reduce non-revenue water from two fronts. We have water that is being delivered to the household that is not being measured, and secondly, you also have a high level of wastage. And we have been aggressively addressing this because it's important that you also capture and you measure this. We have a metering program that we've put in place. Now that we're moving towards ensuring we fulfill that commitment on the treated water, we'll also step up in terms of our metering program. And the metering program, may I say this, a myth, is not to capture more revenue from the households. It is a measurement. It is there to account because it also helps with your control mechanism for your own household. If you have something that is being delivered to you and it's continuous, it's not measured, then the tendency is to have wastage. And so that is what it helps. In a major way too, with our treatment program, our treatment program says therefore, you have a number of existing treatment plants, you see upgrading. With those upgrade also comes for new ones. So we have 7. We've just commissioned one of those 7. And throughout the next 2 months, by and large, or 3 months maximum, we'll be continuing the others. Then you have another 5, which will start up in a major way. So it's 13. So it's 7 or 5, 12, and the 13th is, which we are all looking forward to, is whereby Guyana, who has all this abundance or access to fresh water because of our 2 factors, of our drainage and irrigation system and the usage of water for agriculture purpose. So with the Hope Canal and the putting into place to turn this access to treated water that will supply a major way on the east coast of Demerara, that will be the 13th. And then in the continuing period, the studies have already started to mirror that on the East Bank. And in the government's program, as you've seen in the budget announced this year, similar canals are going to start up in other regions. Regions 5, 6, and 3. Once those come on stream in the years to come, we're hoping to tap into those. But coming back to the current scenario, when you drive around the communities, you're seeing two things now. You're seeing new roads, and then when you look at the side of the roads, you see the side it's dug up. Before, you're seeing a lot of pipe laying exercises. It's not that those communities don't have water, but we're changing out the transmission systems because with us now having to we're having upgrade with our systems that we have, it will mean increased pressure, and we're also expanding the transmission lines. And may I also add, is an aggressive coastal system for access to water from the wells. And each one of those treatment plants also has raw intake that is coming to the treatment plants for distribution. So it's a number of new wells that are being drilled on the coastline too. And so we have a lot of changing out of the transmission pipes that are taking place, not just along the highways, but in the communities themselves. This, we ask for your patience. This is to help you. We'll be able to increase the pressure. You'll have a better level of service. You have a better quality of water coming to your household. The other aspect I want to mention on water is the Georgetown program. The Georgetown program, I know persons have been weary. They drive by Parliament building and they see leakage. You drive along the Avenue Republic and you get to by maybe the National Library or the Senate Off, you see leakages. Drive going to by Ministry of Finance, their junction, you see another leakage. You go to by Guyana, you see leakages. All of those are the changing out of the system because the weight that is traversing the roads now and the pipe system, those that are old decade old pipes systems on the there. We have a program to change all of that out. And so in a major way stepping up, one will see along the Avenue Republic, along the High Street end, one will see changing out of those pipes. It is to help the citizens of Georgetown, and so I want to give in advance, ask for patience, because even now, with us drilling a new well at Shelter Belt, we just can't turn the pressure up. If we turn the pressure up, then the pipe systems we have there will not be able to accommodate that. So in a major way, we are continuing that program. So I want to tell citizens there's a lot to look forward to. I've said to persons, you've been hearing us speaking, this is what we're doing in the water sector. This is what we are addressing. And similarly for the hinterland, we took over the hinterland. It was 45% access to potable water. 45%, below 50. As a result, now we ended the year of 2024. By and large, for the hinterland, we're about 92%. We're committed to 100% this year. That means there are more wells that will be drilled in every community that allows access to potable water. But I've said to persons that, you've been hearing us speaking, and they say to us, but we're not seeing it. And then we're talking about the treatment plant program, and you commissioned the Covent Garden, you commissioned the one on the East Bank, and then somebody will turn on and say, hey, but I'm still getting brown water, I'm still getting rusty water. But we said, hey, every one of you are going to be affected in a positive way. You're seeing the results of that. 2025 is the year for the water sector that one will see the total transformation of what we've been speaking about in this sector. So the resources, the $23 billion resources allocation this year allows us to commit and complete this program that we're speaking about, that allows at the household level, we get off from work, we must turn on the tap and you have water running in the taps. You get home from work, you must be able to turn on your tap and be able to have water running at your sink. That is what we will achieve come this year. We have already started another program that will speak towards the phase two, because government's housing program cannot be done in isolation too, and that's where how water is important for the housing sector. So we have new housing schemes that are coming on board, are expanding. So we have already started that initiative of looking at the phase two to address the upcoming housing schemes. So I'm excited about this, because as we go and we travel the length and breadth of our country, and the engagements, you will find the issues or the complaints, they have begun to reduce. That it means we are doing something right. And it means it in a positive way. I'm happy about that.
Minister, we are almost down to program time, but I wanted to ask, every sector faces challenges, and I'm sure housing and water, there are some challenges there. How does Budget 2025 seek to address these challenges that might be faced, and what can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. So let me continue with water. One of the challenge we've had in the water sector is first of all, on the coastline, we've had to drill a number of new wells. The capacity in terms of, we've had some challenges there. The rate at which we want to do this, we've not had too many in the system that have been working as fast as we want to do this. The resources are there in the budget to allow us to complete the initiative, as I just outlined in the previous point. In terms of water too, we have been making investment in the water sector. No increase. In fact, when we got in, we reduced by 5% the pensioners, we introduced a subsidy program, all of this, and it remained the same. But one of the challenges we've still continued to have is, as I said, in our non-revenue water. We want to reduce it further. We still have a fair bit of leakages and breakages, so we want to ask persons. A lot of construction is happening, but they just don't report when the pipes are broken. It's broken and they stay quiet, and we have to send the team out. We're looking for the leakages, or based on the feedback one gets. Then you're aware that water pressure has dropped in a particular area. So I want to urge persons to please use our lines to call in and report such incidents, because we have a team, we have a 24 hours team is out there that want to fix issues, because this is a year for us to have the least disruption on water. Inherent with this is the electricity. We have had some disruptions, because whenever electricity goes off, we are affected in many of the locations too. So with the electricity sector being addressed, then therefore one will see a continual flow on water. Quickly on housing, in terms of challenges, it's a lot of work ahead. To every area that you develop, on average, for the lot we're allocating, it's about $5 million minimum to develop that space in front of the road, the road that will run in front of you, that passes you, about $5 million to develop that. The cost that we ask the beneficiaries to pay, it's subsidized land costs. That will not cover the full cost of the infrastructure work required. So we run into challenges sometimes in capacity in terms of the number of contractors, because we want them to work as quickly as possible. We have had some challenges. We had to attend the meeting too, because we had some contractors in the housing sector that did not complete their contracts in the timely manner. They had overrun in time. When that happens, it affects somebody who's waiting, because once they are not finished, I'm not able to put the surveyors are not able to put the necessary poles so that we can show their land. So there's a domino effect. Somebody's paying a rent longer than they're expected, because they were thought that they would have been able to start their own construction. So it's a whole chain that are affected. And secondly, in terms of the beneficiaries, it's, as I said earlier, it's tied into access to land, availability of land. So please, for our listeners, please be patient. Your government will address all those pending applicants. Once the older ones are in the system, we will address them. And the ones outside of Region 4, we will bring them very close to on par in this year. But please be patient. Sometimes, there's no need to be frustrated. There's no need to be engaging anyone outside of the official channels of housing. And we still continue. It's frustrating sometimes when you listen to stories of persons telling you they've paid or they've been duped, whatever word we want to use or description, when there's absolutely no need. And there's absolutely no need for squatting because we're addressing all of those persons. We have an aggressive program, and we will not be recognizing new squatting. But all the older ones there, you have a compassionate, you have a caring government that is interested in uplifting the lives of all of its citizens.
Minister, finally, before I let you go, as we look beyond 2025, I want to challenge you, just one word, in terms of the vision for the housing and water sector. If you had to use one word to describe it and to link it back to the benefits that our citizens will enjoy, what would that word be?
Satisfactory. Getting home, being satisfied, you work, get home, you're getting to your own home. You're picking up your child from school, or you get home, they're doing their homework in your own home. That must be satisfying for a family.
Thank you so much, Minister, and thank you to you, our listeners and viewers of this program of Budget in Focus as we delved into the housing and water sector. I was joined in studio by Honorable Collin Croal, Minister of Housing and Water, and that's all the time we have for now. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.